Hello and welcome to Happy Horror Time. My name is Tim Murdoch.
And my name is Matt Emmert. Today's special guest began his acting career playing the title character in the TV drama Lucan. But as horror lovers, we remember him most for his role as Alpha Sigma Rho President Peter Bennett in 1981's Hell Night. Now, although he set out to scare the four pledges staying overnight at the abandoned Garth Manor, the tables sure turned on him when the Garths came out to slice and dice. He then went on to star in other thrillers such as Time Walker, The Seduction, and Fatal Charm. Please welcome to the podcast, Kevin Brophy.
Thank you. Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, too. Thank you so much for being on our show. We really appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Of course. So, we wanted to know, where are you from originally and how did you first get involved in acting?
I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. And our family moved when I was 9 years old to Los Angeles. And so I spent time in the San Fernando Valley. That's pretty much where I went to school and 1 year of high school. But I did plays. It's a kind of a cliche old story, but I did a couple of plays. And I really enjoyed speaking in front of people. And some people, it's, an absolute terror, but I just seemed to enjoy it. And my dad always gave me a hunk of advice, which was, when you're in that situation, just look at everybody as if they're in their underwear and you're the one that's dressed. And it kind of reduced the nervousness and gave you a sense of calm. And so while growing up, I saw movies. I just love movies. And I really liked Paul Newman. He was just the greatest. Steve McQueen, that whole genre of actors in there. And then I thought, when I saw these films, they were just so alluring because cinema was changing so much at that time. So you had Bonnie and Clyde, and you had Cool Hand Luke, and these really wonderful, groundbreaking movies. And I thought, you're going to have to do something when you get out of school in terms of making a living. And I'm sure my dad wanted me a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, but it just didn't feel right. But I thought making movies would really be something. And I think I read a quote where Paul Newman said, you get a chance and you're making movies and that's what you want to do. It is so great. And they always say, find what you like to do or want to do, because then it's not really, you're not going to work. You're going to do what you like to do. So I like to say I was born to do this, and I had a really lucky, very fortunate career.
Yeah.
That's my dad's favorite movie, Cool Hand Luke.
It is Cool Hand Luke. I thought, well, he's the coolest guy. And then all of them. You had HUD, Hombre, Paul Newman he's just great. And, then he gave everything to charity. And apparently he's just a real kick in the pants, a super funny guy off screen. And then he started making the spaghetti sauce, and his neighbor said, that's pretty good, Paul. Maybe you should bottle it and sell it. He thought, yeah. And he's a wisecracking guy, and he's a race car driving guy. He just was really all around a cool guy. So we looked into that charity, and it's the Hole in the Wall Gang. That's another one of my favorites, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
I almost quote daily from that movie. There's so many good lines. But so we started that. It was for underprivileged kids and privileged kids and everybody in between. And then the popcorn and the salad dressing. He's just really, when you break him down, he's a pretty cool guy. And he's got the blue eyes, and he's got a brother. It's always true kind of when you have a brother. Looks a lot like him, but it's just not quite put together the way Paul is put together. He's got the eyes and everything, but you can see the resemblance. But so those kind of things influenced me. And when it came time for college, didn't really have the grades for UCLA. And my dad wanted me to go to a 4-year college. And I told him I wanted to be a professional actor. And that elicited a nice slap across the face. And I'm pretty sure I was in the 8th grade, 14, 15. And he said, why would you want that for a career? Why would you always be wanting to look for a job and always broke? I said, because it's not going to happen for me. I'm going to break the mold. I'm going to do good and be good at this. And I feel strong about it. So that was nice of him. And instead of UCLA, I went to California Institute of the Arts up in the Los Angeles area, Santa Clarita. It's the Disney school. It's a 4-year school. And it was for the performing arts and the visual arts. My classmates were Ed Harris.
Oh.
We always knew Ed would just explode. He was just such an intense actor. He was so good. David Hasselhoff. We knew the Hoff, he'd go on to be what the Hoff is. And who else? I had one more. Oh, I had Paul Rubens. We love Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman. And when I got to the school, he was a senior and I was a freshman. And what an amazing guy. He did Moliere, he did Shakespeare, he hadn't come up with the Pee Wee thing, but he had that groundlings feeling kind of comedy, and he was a natural for it. So there were definitely some fun people in our class.
That's and that sounds really cool, especially that something that stuck out that you said was the advice of like doing something you love and then it doesn't feel like a job. I mean, even this podcast for us, Tim and I have been friends for over a decade. We've always loved horror movies and we just would always talk about them. So we thought, why don't we just do a podcast? And then we started reaching out to people to interview. And now, like he said, we've interviewed close to 80 people from all these horror movies we love. And it doesn't feel like a chore or a job at all. It's just us talking to people we love through the years.
Well, it's a great idea, fellas. What you should bring in there, one of my favorite horror movies. Again, I grew up on movies. Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte. Did you ever see it?
I've heard of it.
That scared me so much I had to go out to the lobby and finish it. I couldn't stay at the theater. The cleaver coming down, it was just so hairy. And there was another, Wait Until Dark with Alan Arkin. And what a scary movie that was, Efren Zimbalist Jr. So, yeah, the horror movies, they're always good. And it's hard to find a bad one. And I'm glad that
I was just going to ask you, like, growing up, were horror fans on your radar? Like, are those the movies that had an impact on you?
Oh, yeah, all of them did. We just love going to the movies. And anytime I got a chance to see anything like that, and as I grew up, I learned to like Hush, Hush, Sweet Charlotte. But I was 14. I was scared. This was a horror movie for me. And, I dig The Blob. I loved everything that started that whole, kind of genre of films. And it was so much fun. And like you listed a couple, I got a chance to do a couple like that with the heavy makeup and everything. And just a blast.
Yeah. So even though we're not focusing on Lucan in this interview, I know it was a big milestone for you because was it your first TV show?
It was my first professional acting job.
Wow.
I just got out of CalArts. I had a Bachelor of Arts degree in acting. That and a buck gets you a bus ride to somewhere. And the day of the play was the final of my senior year. The LA Times sent up a reviewer and a photographer. And I was in a play, my senior play, The Death and Life of Jesse James. And I love the Old West. That's another form of kind of horror genre.
Yeah.
So my picture ran in the LA Times. I got a sawed-off shotgun, cigarette, my posse behind me. It's a wicked picture. It was just a great shot. And it was a simple twist of fate, as Bob Dylan would say. So the picture ran in the Times. From that picture, an agent called from William Morris Agency. Reconnected with my wife, Amy, because I hadn't seen her since we moved to the San Diego area, late 60s. And then the head of daytime television programming called and said, look, I'd like to meet with you. We have a lot of actors that we need young actors to play, but, they're usually 24 and they look too old, or they're 18 and they really can't act. You seem to have it all. So I met with her, and it took a year, a lot of auditions. I went up The Boy in the Plastic Bubble with John Travolta.
Oh, that movie.
Yeah.
And PJ Souls was in it too. Yeah.
He's a great guy. But I mean, he got it. Of course, he was just a great actor. What was he? A groundhog, warthog? He was one of the hogs.
Welcome Back, Kotter.
Yeah. Welcome Back, Kotter. Yeah. Kotter's cool too. He's quite a poker player. Yeah. So, but my agent said, look, you're coming in second place and third place on these things. You've never done anything before. So, let's just see what happens. So he called and said, you have an audition for Lucan, The Boy Raised by Wolves. And I said, well, what is that? He said, it's like a Romulus and Remus. It's a young man that ran with a pack of wolves. They find him, they educate him, and they put him out in the world. He said, just go have fun with it. Don't worry about it, and just have a good time. So I drive a Triumph, a TR4, the sports car, 67. She's a beauty, boys.
Wow.
So I'm on my way to MGM. I got a shift. I got the script. I'm driving, and I end up in a right turn only lane, and there's a left turn, right turn. I'm in the wrong lane, and I'm like, okay. So I look over. There's a Mercedes. I'm thinking, well, I just got to cut this guy off. I'm sorry. So the light turns green. I kind of cut him off, and he honks. But I throw my hand out the window, and I wave. I'm just, sorry. And so I pull into MGM. He pulls into MGM.
Oh, no, the casting agent. No.
I pull in a spot. He pulls in a spot. I'm like, oh, no. So I get out. I go over to him and I said, listen, I am so sorry. I found myself in that lane and I needed to be in yours. And he said, hey, listen, it's all right. It happens all the time. Most people flip me off, but you come over and you were very nice. I said, well, listen, I don't flip people off. I said, I'm a waiver. So if I'm in the wrong, I'm in the wrong. He said, very nice of you to come over. Don't worry about a thing. Have a nice day. So I go into the Irving Thalberg building. At this point, I was kind of going straight to producer. You didn't have to do the casting agent thing. I was starting to kind of get known a little bit. So it was great. So fourth floor, Barry Lowen, nice lady comes out. She said, Mr. Lowen will be with you in a minute. I said, okay, he'll see you now. I open the door. I take one step into the office. Guess who? Boy,
it's the guy you cut off.
It's Barry Lowen, the guy I cut off. He looks at me and he says, aren't you glad you didn't flip me off? And I said, I told you I don't flip people off. He said, listen, get in here. I think you're right for this part. I think you're going to be perfect for it. We're going to work on it and we're going to get it. So, and I said, well, thank you. So that's the name of my book. Aren't you glad you didn't flip me off? And so, because you never know. And I was thinking that on the way home, and even years later, just to kind of keep yourself humble in a certain way. You know, I went to school. I knew I was going to be an actor since I was 12. I'm now in my 20s. It's been a 10-year ride. This is what I've wanted. It's all going to hopefully happen if I do a good audition. But I happen to be in life. I cut a guy off and I flip him off. You know, fuck you, buddy. I gotta be somewhere. I gotta read for the part. Sorry. And your whole career. And now I walk in that door and the guy says, oh, yeah, listen, I'll just call your agent and tell him you came in. You were great. Or, you know, there's no reason to read. We already know. And they could have said anything.
Yeah.
And, you know, they don't want to waste their time and you don't want to waste their time. And so because I didn't do that, because that's who I wasn't that guy, we wrote it out. I did the screen test and it was just fortuitous from the word go. And along came this. Now I get the part and I'm scared because what does a boy raised by wolves do? And I kind of came to the conclusion that everything this character will be doing for the first time. So he goes to college. They teach him to eat. You know, he's like a student of life. And then he's on the road to look for his parents, which he does. But each episode is a different thing, a new thing for that character, whether it's driving a car or kissing a girl or whatever. And when I looked at it that way, I just, again, had such a great time with this. And it was God's fortuitousness. And I've had a good 7-year run. And it started with, aren't you glad you didn't flip me off?
But I mean, it's so cool. And also just to get that break, I mean, it was a starring role in a TV series and
lead role, ABC television. Yeah. Never worked before. I didn't have a piece of film on me. I was sending out an 8x10 picture, you know, until I got some film on me. But yeah, and that'll keep you humble too, because it's just, you prepare and you want it, and it's a roll of the dice and anything can happen, you know. And that's why they audition people. Oh, we're sorry, Kevin, but Matt or Tim got the role, not you. What? But there was never that hairy sense of competitiveness. And by working along, all of a sudden, I became great friends with a casting director or two. And he just would call and say, Kevin, you got a Love Boat, you know, be at rehearsal on Tuesday and costumes on Thursday, shoot on Friday. So I was to the point, it was the actor's dream. I didn't even have to go in an audition. My reputation preceded me. And I got a number of roles because of that. And
that's great.
Yeah, open some doors.
What'd you say?
I said open some doors.
Yeah, open a ton of doors.
You know, it did. And you'll see, you know, The Price is Right or Come On Down, Let's Make a Deal. And or even America's Got Talent, which I love. And you get 2 minutes and it can open doors. People see your performance. And the next thing you know is, wow, that guy's great. So it really did. And it was just such a great opportunity. I met everybody and I really got to do. But like you said, I knew I'd have to pay for it. You got to pay your dues in this business some way. And nobody gets out alive. And getting the lead when I had no work professional before, and this is my first thing. Yeah, it was, I knew everything was going to be right. It's just across your finger.
Yeah. Well, moving on to the 1981 slasher film Hell Night, which starred yourself, Linda Blair, who played the final girl Marty, and Peter Barton, who played Jeff, and we had on the podcast earlier this year. Now, we heard you mention in the Blu-ray special features that you auditioned with that big monologue about the Garth family history. Can you tell us about that audition and how you found out you landed the role?
Well, it was, again, another audition. Bruce had done a film before definitely with Linda, not Peter. I don't think maybe Peter. But so this kind of group of actors and producer, director, and everybody, they kind of well knew each other. But again, my agent called, said, it's Hell Night. You're the fraternity boy. Go in and have a good time. And I said, okay. So a lot of times I didn't like getting the script in advance as I was auditioning for roles. I just like to get it right there when I went in the office, read the thing and go. But then as I went on, it was neat to know a prop you could use or something. Oh yeah, well, what are these pills? And you pull out a bottle of pills instead of miming it. Every eye in the room is on you. They're like, whoa, this guy, he's interesting. What's he going to do? And I took the pills and threw them against the wall. Pills go everywhere. Boom, got the job. So now I'm saying, yeah, I want that script in advance. So Hell Night was there. Now, I was a big football fan. It was a Monday night. It was in November. It was Monday Night Football. Something was on, but it was Monday Night Football. Starts at 6. My audition was at 4. Now they're kind of pushing it back. Now it's 4:30, 4:45. And, Kevin, are you okay? I said, I'm okay, but,
but I've got Monday Night Football coming up.
I got Monday Night Football, and they start to laugh. So she says, okay, and it's November, so it was kind of dusky. So when I went in for the audition, there's 2 producers, the director, Linda Blair, a casting director. There's about 7 or 8 people in the room. And I had never done this before, but I knew I was going to be doing that monologue. So when I came in, oh, nice to meet you, nice to meet you. I said, listen, would you all, because it was kind of an office type home-like setting, carpeting, and it was very homey. And I said, would you mind if I turned these 2 lights off, put that light on, and adjusted the blind? Really? I said, I just want to set a little mood. So I did, and it helped me, definitely helped them. I read twice. And what they usually do in the biz, in the industry, once you audition, you go outside in the room and you wait in the hall, and they call you back. And a lot of times it's not a yay or a nay. It's just, are you available such and such, or can you? And then they'll say, we'll let you know. And they usually always say they let you know. But they call me back in. I read it again, and they said, listen, we don't see how it can really get any better. You're our Peter Bennett. I said, okay. Can I get now Monday Night Football?
Wow. They told you right there and then that you got to play.
I had to go out, and they said, we're going to talk about you a little bit. And that's only happened twice in my career. The Long Riders was the other one, my first Western. I said I loved Westerns. Yeah. And he said, James Keefe said, go out in the hall. We're going to talk about you. Call me back in, and said, yeah, you got the part. And so that's a great ride home, because a lot of times you'll second guess yourself. I could have done this. I should have said that or whatever. But no, this worked, and I set the mood. And what was fun is we were a very youthful cast. Linda and I are still friends to this day. Oh. We shot on location. It was this sun-kissed house in Reading, so it was this great haunted-looking like mansion.
Still standing. Mm-hmm.
Still standing. And because we were boy and girl, so we each had our own RV trailer and dressing room. I think by the end, by the end of 2 hours of shooting, we were all in one RV trailer. Nobody was in the other one. The producers ended up using it. But it was that kind of a fun, it was a night shoot. So it really, and it was a good script. It was, it had the horror suspense, like you said, in there.
Well, is it true, because there's another thing you mentioned in the special features, that Quentin Tarantino said that your big speech is one of the best monologues in all of horror?
I'm telling you, all of horror. Now, again, telephone kind of stopped ringing. It's a few years later. I was a great valet at the Hotel Bel Air. I don't know if you've been there or not. And when I went there, I figured, I started in 83. It was hard. It was tough, the career. And that's the career of an actor is, get me Kevin Brophy, get me someone like Kevin Brophy, and get me a younger Kevin Brophy, who's Kevin Brophy. So once you realize you're going to do that, you can always have a second or third coming again. And we see good actors do this all the time. Travolta comes to mind, many actors. And so I'm parking cars, and I love the Bel Air, but I had said to myself, I may not get back to that silver screen. And if I do, I don't. But this is a wonderful hotel. And so it turns out I kept a journal. I was there for 26 years. I knew everybody in town, and they knew me. I got to park my car down below. And Quentin was there for something, some event. And as he's coming out, I wasn't shy because I'm ready. So I stepped forward and I said, Mr. Tarantino, and I knew his whole history and everything. Yes, listen, I'm Kevin Brophy. Kevin Brophy. No, I said, Hell Night. Oh, you're the guy. And I said, yes, sir. He said, listen, that's one of the finest horror monologues I've ever heard in a horror movie. You just nailed it. He said it was great. Well, thank you very much. I was hoping to get something with him, but it didn't happen. And that's okay, because when you work with Quentin Tarantino, you not only learn your lines, you learn everybody's lines.
and you can do it because you learn that monologue as someone who cannot learn a huge amount of dialogue. I was very impressed.
And Quentin Tarantino's movies are very dialogue heavy.
Oh, God, are they ever? But Tim, you're right. And I thought the same thing. But I think, as you can tell, I am kind of a storyteller, and I enjoy telling stories. So once I kind of had that thing down and the progression of the story, the director said, really, when you said the little dork hung himself, hang yourself. So I thought, okay, that's what I like about directors. Give me a little bit of direction and I'll go with it. But if you don't, and I try to bring stuff to the role as well, but I wouldn't have come up with that. And the little dork hung himself is like, oh, that's and the limp and everything like that. But they also shot with a Steadicam, which was used in Rocky. It had only been around 2.5, 3 years. And it took an operator and it took a guy who would hold your waist. And this thing is on a series of gyros. So like Rocky, when Rocky's running up the stairs, we're not bouncing with him. We're going directly with him. So we feel like we're right on his shoulder. So the Steadicam was a really interesting thing. And it really helped me a lot, because it's like you're telling the story right there to the friend, and the friend is walking right along with you. It was really very different. But thanks for the compliment. That was nice. And I said to Quentin, thanks for the compliment.
That's an amazing compliment. And while you're doing the monologue in the movie, and it really actually sets up the entire plot for the movie, like that's the whole backstory. Because it was such a long speech, did you have to do it multiple times? Were there a lot of takes? Were you tired of doing it by the end?
Matt, that's a great question. We started it, and it was the last shot before dinner.
Oh, dear.
Oh.
I look at him, and we're shooting at night, so it's about 12:30 at night. We eat at 1, something like that, eat at midnight or somewhere in that range, 11 to 1. And the director said, look, I want to shoot the master. I want to shoot the master on the Steadicam, and you tell the story coming up the stairs. Then we'll break for dinner. Then you can come back and we'll what they call punch in for the close-ups, different people's reactions over shoulders, all the language of film. And I said, oh, really? And he goes, yeah, we can do it. We can fit this thing in. So I said, okay. So I went to my dressing room. I think I had to change my shirt. Changed, glanced at it one more time, came out, full cast, full everybody. And all anybody wants to do when it's dinner time is eat. And they don't want to see you messing up or, sorry, what was that? Can you help me out? What do I do? So I thought, I'm just going to get this and get it done. And I like that Steadicam. Took a deep breath. I knew the story. I incorporated the story to be me telling a story rather than a character on a movie set. I had the cape. I had all the props. I was ready to go. Action. And we shot that master. I came up the stairs. On film, it runs about, I would say, 3.5 to 4 minutes. So without any breaks or any, I forgot my line or whatever. It was pretty much a 3.5, 4 minute up the stairs telling the story. And then when I get to the house, it was like the director's idea. The camera comes over my shoulder. We open to a wide and the music, and you see the house. And like you said, Matt, it tied it up so great. Everybody's coming up. Oh, my God, Kevin, that was great. You didn't make a mistake. And, I didn't. We ate, and then we punched in for everybody's close-ups. And the thing about that, so if it's you two doing something and you're talking to me, a lot of times stars will say, yeah, I'll be in my dressing room or I'll be in the trailer. And they like you to be next to the camera. So you're talking to me and I'm feeding you the right lines. And so we did that. We did it all night long till 5 o'clock. I never got tired of it.
Wow.
It just went great. It was that kind of film that, like you said, it set the mood for the whole story. And then once I died, I always said to the director and producer, the film's not quite the same now that I'm not. They start laughing. But it really was, it was one of those things that went according to plan.
And obviously we have to ask, what was it like working with icon Linda Blair?
Linda Blair she's just the coolest thing ever. And she's so personable. And like all of us, I just knew her from The Exorcist, and that had been, 8 years before or something. But we're all in the trailer. We're telling stories. She told Exorcist stories, and she just had this really sweet way about her. And we're still friends to this day. And
what kind of things I'm just so interested in, because The Exorcist had been such a monumental moment in her life just 8 years before. Like, how did she talk about it at that point?
Well, it's kind of like me, too, kind of being new to the business. She was a young girl, but the bed's shaking, her head spinning, the vomit. Ellen Burstyn was very good with her. And I think I know she had a terrific mom, too, and a director. Everybody just walked her and talked her through it and said, the more natural you're going to be, don't react to the horror. Don't react, because she's doing it, really. Mm-hmm. But just react to your be here now kind of thing. Both feet, be here now. And what was she? She was 13 or 14.
Yeah.
So she was ahead of her years. She had done a lot of plays, a lot of theater, and she did a lot of TV. And once you get to be friends with the camera and you let the camera work for you, it's really great. It's a whole different style of acting, because when you're on the stage, you need to hit that back wall and they have to hear you, and you need to be bigger and this and that. And when that camera's on, it catches every little nuance. Your eyebrow comes up, it means something. That's Paul Newman. He's got one of the greatest eyebrows in Hollywood. That thing comes up, man. And I wish I could do that, but I can't. But Linda understood that. And so she let the camera be her friend. And I think actors that really understand the language of cinema and they let the camera be their friend, it's just the way to go. Because if you're lying and you're a little insincere, or you kind of forgot the line and you barely get it out, the camera knows that too.
Yeah.
It's right there.
And what was it like working with Peter Barton? Because we know this was early in his career too.
It was. I think Peter had been on the soap opera. I know it was The Young and the
Matthew
Restless.
Starr. No, the Matthew Starr show was after, I think.
The Powers of Matthew
Starr was after. The Powers of that was after. So I didn't know Peter. I met him then. He had done that. I think it was a roller skating movie or something. And so again, Peter is such a great guy. Talk about the camera loving you. And he's so handsome, and he can play anything. Debonair, really snidely Whiplash. He's got that full range. And I just enjoyed meeting him. Yeah. After we finished filming, we used to have a ping pong table. I lived in Van Nuys. We used to have a ping pong table in the garage, and we had ping pong tournaments pretty much Friday and Saturday nights. Peter's right there. Put the Beatles on. We drink beer. We play ping pong. So we became friends. I've known Peter for 40-something years, 43 years.
Wow. That's so cool. And yeah. I know the shoot, because it was only nights. Was it grueling? I mean, did you feel like a vampire sleeping during the day for a while? Well,
it was, I think it was 8 weeks, 9 weeks. So you knew there was an end to it. But yeah, and even today, I have an empathy for anybody working the overnight. It's tough physically. It's tough on your body. It's just, it's kind of like not the way we work. But it's weird because, you go to bed we'd be at the liquor store at the end of the shoot, get the beers at 6 a.m. The guy is just putting the key in the door and opening up, and there's me, Peter, Linda. What can I do? I need a 6-pack of this. I need some red licorice,
wow.
Because it's just like it's 5 at night when we've gotten off work. Only it's 5 or 6 in the morning. So we'd watch cartoons. You get into bed by 8, get your sleep, get up at 2:30, eat. The van is there to take you to the set. It is a job. You don't forget that. And it is grueling, Tim. It's interesting you'd say that. Even though you're loving it and everything, there's a lot of times where even during Lucan, I said, geez, I didn't know you had to get up at 3:30 in the morning and, be in makeup at 6 and on the set at 7. It's hard. And you'll see actors come and go sometimes on television series because it is hard. It's grueling. It's still, you're artistic and you're acting, but it's brutal hours sometimes.
And you guys worked through the holidays, right?
Yeah, I came into the producer, I think it was Thanksgiving, on Hell Night. And I said, sir, what's the story? Do we get Thanksgiving off? No, it's my first film. Second film, Lawn Riders. And he goes, Kevin, this is why you get the big money. Get back out there and get to. I said, I don't get Thanksgiving? No. And so this was Bruce Cohn Curtis. He was the exec producer of Hell Night. So again, we start at 5, we break for dinner at 10, and you're back at 11. You get an hour for dinner. And all of a sudden, it's Thanksgiving night, and 9:30, there's a double-decker red London-type bus in Redlands, right outside the hall where we're shooting at the house. Picks us up, takes us to the hall over there. Full Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh.
The stuffing, the turkey, the cranberry, all of us. He fed all 80 of us and took us back to the set on the double-decker bus. And I said, Bruce, what a general, what a great guy. And he said, well, you kind of reminded me, and I know you get the big bucks, but I think I get bigger bucks when you're at your best. And I said, you know what? That's a great way to think. So by taking care of the crew, you take care of the picture, and it's very important to have a happy crew.
Yeah, no, of course.
Especially working those hours.
Yeah, and so
especially in the middle of the night for sure.
Hell Night was directed by Tom DeSimone, who also went on to direct The Concrete Jungle and Savage Streets. And what was his directing style like? Like, was he very serious or more lighthearted?
Lighthearted, and he was very focused. So he knew what he wanted. He did his homework, and as an actor, that's what you have to do. You learn your lines, and you come in and you know your lines. You don't mess around. You don't waste people's time. And Tom was the same way. He'd what they call storyboard. So each thing that he would shoot, if I'm going to shoot you two, I draw it out so I know you say this. So he knows what he's shooting in the next day. And then if it rains or something, that's what they call Plan B set. Well, it's raining, so we can't do the outdoor. So we got to go over to the hall and we'll do that. Kevin, you know your lines? No, it wasn't on. So you kind of become a quick study. And Peter was that way because of soap operas. They hand you pages all the time, half hour before shooting. And, Peter he had that mind that just could definitely do that.
No, yeah. I mean, and so this is a very, very tiny detail, but there's a part in the movie after you lock the pledges inside Garth Manor, everyone leaves and you're driving away in a red convertible with a blonde girl sitting on the hood. Now, did you really have to drive for a while with this girl on the hood? And was that weird?
Not very far because the driveway was there. So, it's like an eighth of a mile and the camera's here. So, have a good night, you guys. And it was the Corvette. And she's the hot babe. She was a lot of fun. She was from England. And she just climbed on the hood. Tom said, that's fine. So she kind of held on where the windshield wipers are. I didn't punch it, but we drove out of frame. But yeah, it was a little way. We didn't get on the highway or the freeway or anything.
405.
The 405.
You come out that driveway, you can kind of see it disappears. I thought that was neat too, man. I'm telling you, because I said, listen, don't get off. Hang on, for a while.
All I was thinking was, oh my God, he's driving with someone on the hood. But it's so well done because you and her don't look nervous at all. You just kind of drive away.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I call the second part of the movie. What do they say now? What do you call Real Horror Show? The Little Guy Ray. And we set up all the pranks and everything. Uh-huh. And, again, not to pat myself on the back, but to keep it real when you're doing horror films, it is easy. I knew I was going to get cut in half and bloodied, but I also knew the guy that I'm cranking up the side, my buddy who helps me out, and he comes up with the broken neck. The whole tension of that scene was really so much because of Tom, but he had said, you don't know what is coming up there because it's not talking. And so the breath, and it was cold, and we're on the top of the roof, and the wind's blowing and leaves, and the beauty of film is we shot maybe, I don't know, a minute or two on the roof. Then we shot the rest of it the next day in a soundstage, all set up like the roof with the wind turbine, the leaves, everything, the cold air. I was so blown away at the magic of movies and how they make movies because it looked just like the roof. So as I said, when I'm cranking that up, I thought it was a nice piece of work. And then I see him, I let it go, and I take off running. The music starts.
You have a great chase scene. Like your chase scene is a really good one before finally, you get to the gate, they're dragging you off, you get into the maze. And then finally, unfortunately, your death scene, one of the guards, I think it's called a scythe that gets you in the chest. How did they film? How did they do that effect of the big blade going through your midsection? That
was so fun too, because like you said, the chase scene, you're right. I'm down the stairs. I'm skidding around corners. I'm running for my life, and this monster's here. I get to the gate, I drop the key, and then I get to the maze, and I see him. I don't know what's going to go on, but what they had done is they half-bladed the scythe, and I had a special kind of a thing on, half a chest kind of thing, with a big, deep cut in it. So when he comes around and that scythe comes down, you'll notice you see the whole scythe, and then just before impact, it's kind of a cut, and the thing is just wedged right in me. You got blood and everything going. It's so great.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really cool scene. And then is it true? I read this on IMDb trivia, which is not always correct, but is it true that you still have the purple cape that you wore in the film and that you wear it on Halloween?
Boy, you're amazing, because I was kind of studying up to do my homework. The Bel Air closed. I did get an acting job or two, but it was slow. Now I end up at the Lux Hotel, Rodeo Drive, Bubbly Hills. Not Beverly Hills, Bubbly Hills.
What's Bubbly Hills?
Yeah, I'm not.
And I'm kind of the host of all. I do everything. I'm in the lobby. I'm on Rodeo. I talk to people. It was really the coolest job. The Bel Air was great, but I didn't have to climb in and out of cars. I enjoyed that, but 26 years, that was hard. But then it was the employee party, and I'm thinking, well, why not? So it was the Halloween employee party. I came in with the cape. Everybody's going nuts. It's this velour purple cape, because I asked for it. A lot of times you try to take it and they get mad. But I said to Bruce, I got to have this cape. And the following Halloween, we were invited somewhere. I wore it. And now I just get naked and wear it around the house. It's unreal.
That's amazing.
But it did come in handy, and it's just a great prop. I've always been. Oh,
yeah, of course.
A big prop. You can wave it and you can do things with it. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
And after the film was finished, was there any sort of cast and crew screening or big premiere that you remember?
No big premiere. It's kind of just before the going to Westwood and the red carpet and all that stuff. Linda Blair had a party, and it was what they call a wrap party. So cast and crew, and you don't tell stories of anything that might have gone on because your family's there and everything. Kevin, you remember that night in the Court of Bourbon? No, I don't remember. Whatever it is. But yeah, Linda had a great party. And now remember, it's 1980. We had finished it. It came out in 81. And Linda had gotten me a Christmas present. Just really unbelievable. I opened it up, and I'd been asking my wife for a Walkman, the Sony Walkman, because they had just come out.
Mm-hmm.
So Linda gives me this, and it was awesome. Amy, I took hers too, so I got two of them instead of one. But I'll never forget Linda, and I tell her that you are the coolest thing because you gave me that Walkman. Nobody else had one. And I could not believe the fidelity that came out of this little box. Now, we're everywhere with it now. But if you remember the first time you listened to a Walkman, it's like having your stereo at home and it's just strapped onto your head. It was great.
So that's so cool, especially back then. Before, now obviously people, everything is earphones, wireless, Bluetooth, blah blah blah.
Yeah, completely. But the first time you put the battery in and stuck in the tape, and this sound came out, you really had to be careful because it could hurt the ears if you get it too loud. I always remember her for that, and I think I still have, on my shelf somewhere. That's
so cool. In your opinion, looking back on Hell Night, why do you think that it has developed such a cult following over the last 4 decades?
You're so funny by saying that, Matt. It was 20 years later we did the Blu-ray, and I said to the producer, what is the draw of this? And he said, you guys meshed, and it was a great ensemble cast, and each prank led to the next prank. And it wasn't over the top. It wasn't really heavy slasher, heavy Halloween and that kind of stuff. It was just scratching the surface. But, everybody's been to a frat party and, very funny guys, and they got the skeletons in the closet and all that. And so that touch of reality and see a young group spend the night in a haunted house. I think it's just our natural, kind of like going to the races. And you don't really want to see a race car crash, but wouldn't hurt if one happened and everybody's okay. So you kind of like to watch these characters blend in. And Linda and Peter, I think they had done a film before. They were just such a great match. Their dialogue, everything about it was really great.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a movie that we have loved for a long time because I feel like it has all the elements of a good slasher movie. You have characters you can relate to. There's the partiers, and then there's like the nice, more responsible ones. There's the monster / villain that's stalking you and then coming after you. There's chase scenes. There's, it's just everything that a good slasher from that time needed.
We watch it every year.
Yeah, I love the movie.
That's great. Thank you. I appreciate it. My favorite, I love the party. When the whole opening of the party, I got some cool lines. Everybody's got, and then Peter, the Ray character comes over and says, let's get it going. I said, "Nah, we can't. Sikowski hasn't even gotten drunk yet or whatever." And then the barrel comes flying through that window. And filming that party was a lot of fun. And you're not supposed to drink, but it was hard because we're all young. We're all having fun. We're at the party. So you surreptitiously grab a beer and then, because it wasn't any heavy dialogue or anything. It's just having fun. So, but there is kind of a timelessness to Hell Night. You're right. And I just watched it develop, and it was fun.
Yeah. So we want to play a little game with you where we are going to ask you some simple questions related to your Hell Night co-stars. Don't worry, nothing difficult here, all for fun. All you got to do is answer each of our question with one of the following names: Linda Blair, Peter Barton, Vincent Van Patten, who played, the surfer Seth, or Sookie Goodwin, who played Party Girl Denise. So either Linda, Peter, Vincent, or Sookie. So we're going to just ask you some questions. Who was the biggest jokester on set while filming?
Oh, without a doubt, Vince Van Patten. Did you mentioned his name, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. yes, definitely.
Oh, yeah. Vince is a freaking riot. And he brought everybody up, his sense of humor, and when he does the surfing on the bed with the chick there. And yeah, he's really funny.
Have you run into him lately?
Yeah.
When we did the Blu-ray thing, I think we did something. So it was about 10 years ago. He does the poker thing or something as a host on the poker channel
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know he's married to Eileen Davidson, right?
That I don't know, but I think you might be right. Yeah.
Oh.
But I asked him what he's up to, but he's a host of these poker things. He's perfect. And I think he's a really good poker player too. But no.
Who was the most reserved?
I'd say combination of Peter and Linda. They weren't extroverts on the set. They saved it because you need your energy when the camera's on. Yeah. So it's hard to be always on and always joking and stuff, especially in the middle of night shoots and whatnot. So they were pretty reserved. Then once we knew we had an hour between shots or something, we'd all be in the trailer. We're all laughing. And so we pretty much everything was an equal basis. But I would say the quietest were probably those two, and maybe Peter most of all.
Who did you become closest to while filming of the four?
That's funny. All of us really did. But it was my partner that I rolled up the thing. Jimmy. His name was Jimmy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, him.
And he lived about 3 miles from me in Van Nuys. So I'd see him a couple of times. We went to the movies. The Galleria was there. We went to dinner a couple of times. Then I think he moved. So that's the thing about making films. You're super good friends for 6-8 weeks. And you swear you'll keep in touch. And for the most part, you do. You try to write letters and give people phone calls. But everybody's busy and they spin off to their own world. And so I stayed close with everybody. If I were to see anybody on the street, it'd be the same thing. And when we did the Blu-ray, it's like, God, I haven't seen you in 20 years. And it was just like the first day of shooting. We were all right there again. It was really interesting. So when you get good casting is, a lot of the movie making, the directing, the production values and whatnot. But most movies that you really like, it's the casting. Yeah. Even a show like Cheers or Frasier, these people they're perfect together,
Never heard of it. Just kidding.
Never heard of it. Yeah.
Never heard of it. Who was most like their character in real life? I feel like it's got to be Vince, because if he was a jokester and his character was a jokester.
Yeah, I would say Vince because of that, and also Peter, because Peter was, he played golf. He's very serious sometimes, and so his character closely aligned to who he was. You had to really, really jab him in the ribs and get him going. But
and then a tiny bit of trivia for you.
Who went on to star in Friday the 13th, the final chapter?
Shoot. It's not Jamie Lee. I mean, it is, but I don't know.
Oh, no. Peter Barton did. It's one of the co-stars. Peter Barton ended up being in Friday the 13th, the final chapter.
Wow. Is he got a big role?
Yeah,
he does. Yeah, he's
his
one of
death
the
seems pretty
main
gross.
people.
No, we saw the first one. I don't recall how many of them were there. 13?
Well, I think there's 12.
tons, but he did that movie after
You should
Hell
check
Night.
it out.
It's a good one. It's a good one. Who
All right, I'm gonna look
now
for it.
here's another one. And again, the answer is always one of the 4 co-stars. Who went on to star in another one of Tom DeSimone's films called Savage Streets?
Shoot. Was it Suki?
It was Linda. Linda Blair worked with him.
I'm sorry, I didn't know
No,
that.
hey,
That's
these are
okay.
good. No, these are just for fun.
Who ended up starring in 6 episodes of Baywatch?
Oh God, you guys, where do you find these? Was it Peter?
It was Vincent, which is so funny because he did the surfing. And then we'll do one last one for you.
Whose only movie was Hell Night?
Between Linda, Peter, Vince, and Sookie.
I'm going to say Vince.
It was actually Sookie. It was her only movie.
It was her only movie.
Yeah, which is such it was just a random thing that we found on her because, Linda did a ton of movies. Peter did a ton. I think Vince did a lot of TV and stuff.
That's what I was going to say, TV.
Yeah. A lot of interesting stuff we found. So, we don't have time to go in depth into all the other thrillers you've been in, but we did want to ask you a few questions about some of them, if that's okay.
Of course.
In 1982, 1 year after Hell Night, you starred in a sci-fi horror flick called Time Walker, which is about an alien posing as a mummy that wreaks havoc on a college campus. Funny enough, you again played a mischievous frat guy named Peter. Now, do you think you were starting to get typecast?
I don't know, but I do. I love that role too. I forget about it because it was kind of a film that didn't really get out there. But no, you're right. And that's another fun role because it was a mischievous guy. Now I take the stones. I'm handing them out to the chicks. Now the monster comes and starts strangling the chicks. It was pretty good. And Sherry Belafonte was in there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And another Time Walker also starred James Karen, who was famously in the Return of the Living Dead, Poltergeist. Weirdly enough, again, just researching, I saw that he was in one episode of Lucan as a character named Murdoch. Do you remember meeting James Karen either during Lucan or did you meet him during filming Time Walker?
No, it would have been the Lucan. I think he was with a group of hunters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I remember him. And again, we had a lot of guest stars when I was first coming up, and I always did write everything down, who the director was, who I was working with. But yeah, he's familiar for sure. Hey, we watch TV, and I love Columbo, Murder, She Wrote, and a lot of these guest stars that I've worked with over the years.
Yeah.
So it's really funny to see them in these roles,
And also in 1982, you starred in a stalking thriller called The Seduction, and your big co-star was Morgan Fairchild. Any fun stories about working with Morgan or on that film that you remember?
Yes, I do, because that was The Seduction. I think was the director Tom DeSimone again. I don't know.
I don't think
I'd have to look,
but I don't know. I'd have to look up to
But Morgan couldn't have been nicer, and she was one of the last of what they call the contract actresses, where you'd be under contract to a studio. So you never knew where she would turn up in her career. And it's funny you'd mention her. I believe she was a receptionist on Columbo last night, and the date was 85. So this would have been, every actor's life. You go out, you audition, you have the part of the receptionist. Okay, Morgan Fairchild. It was just the cusp of her getting a couple of great films and becoming who she was. And she was so cool, so nice to me. And we had a lot of jokes, and she was kind of heavily into medicine and medical research. And not a lot of people know this, but it was 81 when we finished The Seduction, and she was working with the researcher, and they were on the cusp of discovering what this AIDS virus was. So wow. She was one of the, I would say, first 8 people onto this virus. Something's going on, and she's brilliant. I mean, she was really super cool. Her mom was always around on the set. She couldn't have been nicer, and she's easy on the eyes. And I stayed friends with Morgan for a few years. She was always just a great actress and a good.
I didn't know that about the science medicine aspect.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't, but she was a definite researcher. She was on the cusp of all that.
Wow. You know, we also saw on your IMDb page a short film, horror film, because we were looking at horror films, called The Clown Statue, that was it looks like it was in some sort of horror anthology called Book of a Thousand Deaths. Is this true sometimes on IMDb, or can you tell us anything about that?
Yes. I stayed at the Bel Air till 2009. Now it's 2010. And, you know, my identity, I hadn't worked since 93. So my last film was in 93, as any good actor. So it's been a few years. And now the hotel closed. I was so busy at the hotel sometimes, unless it was a really juicy role, I just didn't pursue it. And then my agent got a little ill and kind of agency closed. And it's easier to get a part in this town than it is an agent. It's really, really hard. And I always wanted an agent that I would be with for 20, 30, 40 years, the length of my career. And I almost had that. And then they got sick. So it became just kind of everybody fighting for their, you know, for anything that came along. And then in 2010, Megan, my lovely daughter, I don't know if you met her or not. I think you're the reason.
We chatted with her on Instagram, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. She's quite a lady. Anyway, she had met somebody who was directing this film, and it was a trilogy of murder horror. And she just happened to say, you know, my dad's an actor. Any parts for him? And he goes, well, what's he been in? Oh, really? He said, why don't you bring him over and I'll have an audition. Now, the part of the father had already been cast. It's 2010. And the enthusiasm, it was just hard to muster. But Megan said, look, just go in again. And whenever they say go in and have fun, I go in and I have fun and I have a good time.
That's a great attitude.
You close the blinds, you turn on different lights.
Just go in and have fun. That's what you're there for. You know, it's not a dress rehearsal. It's light. Okay. So I read, and the guy's like, wow. He said, will you read it again? I read it again. He said, you know, you brought things to the character I never even thought of. Are you available? Blah, blah, blah. I said, yeah. He said, you know, I'm going to recast because we did have your part cast, but I'm going to recast. I think you're going to be better. So I did this. We shot it at a house, and it was very different for me. I was my own makeup man. I brought my own wardrobe. I mean, it was the dawning of the age of the real independent film. And you just do it for the love of acting, and you do it on a shoestring. And so we shot somewhere in the South Bay, and it was at this house, and I played the father. And I don't think there wasn't any horror scenes for me. I come downstairs and I say something to the daughter, and then it cuts immediately to a room full of clowns, but they're animated and they can move. And apparently it was rather scary. And each of the three books was, I never saw it.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. We wanted to watch it to prepare for this interview. We just couldn't find it.
I don't know if it was ever released or not. I was good, as always. You know, it was of course, it was probably a medium movie, scarier than hell. And a lot of times, you know, you get these films that you can make 100 or 200 films a year, and they just don't get out there. It's just distribution of them is really hard. So that was kind of it. And anything that came up, if I met a producer or something at the hotel, I would, you know, get along and do something. So
yeah. So, you know, one thing, we asked Peter Barton about this, but we also wanted to get your perspective on this because it was just such an incredible story. In 2012, a man named Ray Folk left you and Peter Barton his entire $1.3 million estate, even though he had never met either of you. Apparently, he was a big fan of both of your TV shows. How did this all go down, and what was your initial reaction when you first found out about this?
I tell you, Matt and Tim, it's the most incredible story. You hear of people passing away and leaving $200,000 in their will for their cats or the dogs. And you read about it and you hear about it, and you're like, wow. And then the guy that actually goes and buys the food and whatnot, he gets $50 a week or something, but the cats get the bulk. So it was, I've been out of work. It was 2012. It was my son's birthday, my firstborn. And this letter comes in the mail. It's August 2nd, 2012, and it's addressed to Kevin Brophy. I open it up, Dear Sirs, and it's a thick envelope, and it's from a law office in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I look at Amy and I said, you know, have I ever been to Lincoln? Do you think I did something bad in Lincoln? And now the attorney's on my ass? I don't know. Open it, and it says, Dear Sirs, You don't know me, but I represent the estate of Mr. Ray Efel. He's a farmer here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and he left in his will for you and Peter Barton to inherit everything. And I thought, well, that's crazy. And so the farmland and the equipment is valued at about $800,000, and the house and whatnot. So I said, this is really crazy. It can't be real. And yet there's notarized documents in here. It's a last will and testament from Ray. It's signed and dated. There's notarizations. If it's fake, it's really real fake. So I said to Amy, what do you think? She goes, I don't know. Right from the word go, I'm telling you, fellas, I said, this is the real McCoy. This is the real deal. I said, you've read about it, and it's cats and dogs, but I believe this guy's story. And the executor said, apparently you wrote him 2 pieces of fan mail that he absolutely treasured, and it could have been the most fortuitous answering of fan mail you ever did. So now I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I don't. So call me when you get this. So I call the next day, and the attorney's name is Bailey. Just about the character right out of some novel somewhere, but he's Bailey, and he's the executor. He's about 50-ish. It's just sense of humor. He's just the funniest guy I've ever met on the phone. And he said, Kevin, it's crazy, but it is true. I did the will. My father is an attorney. He did some work for his father, and he called me. And in 1997, he wrote out this will. And even in the will, it said, you guys, if Kevin is passed on or not available, it goes to his next of kin. If they're passed on, it goes to the dog. And the dog, it was like he was adamant that Peter and I received this money and nobody else. And he said, I thought it was kind of crazy, but you've never met him. I said, no. So he said, well, I'll send you some stuff. And, well, he sends the 2 letters that I wrote him, and they're dated 1979 and 1980. And what I used to do, I love fan mail because I was so new to this business that it blew my mind that somebody, not only from Lincoln or Iowa or New York or anywhere, would take the time to sit down and write a letter to an actor that they don't know, but that actor has moved them or changed their life in some way. And that's another reason why I became an actor and went and studied at Cal Arts. And, I wished it had been a little further, and I had a production company, and I could do productions and have them come out and change people's ways of thinking and whatnot. It was all part of the process. So here's this guy, and here's the letters. And, what I would do is come home, and I was the leading getter, daytime television fan mail for like 6 months there when Lucan was on. And it was just unbelievable. They'd bring these duffel bags in, and I answered every piece of mail. There might have been 2,000 letters or whatnot.
That's
but
really
I break
cool.
it up and put them in a basket. I crack a beer. I get the photo, a cover letter, and the manila envelope. Sign the photo, cover letter, write a couple of things, put it in the envelope, mail it, no return address. I don't want to see this thing again, and mail them out. So I probably mailed a few thousand of these things out too, just because I felt it was an obligation. If they're going to do it, I got to return the favor. And how neat. And I've met a couple of 2-3 people over the years online and remained friends because they got a letter from me that changed their lives. That, whether they were autistic or one of their friends was suicidal, whatever, Lucan had a way of. So this meant a great deal to me. And I'm just laughing at the attorney. And so he says, yeah, it's pretty much the real McCoy, Kevin. This is the guy. And he was somewhat of an outcast. He didn't bathe a lot. The water pump broke in the house, so he bathed in the creek. And if it was wintertime, he just wouldn't bathe. So his hygiene, everything about him was a little odd. His parents always thought he was a little odd. I've done some research on this, obviously, since this happened. But I said, well, thank you. He said, well, listen, I'll be in touch. And the next thing you know is we got $500,000 apiece, Peter and I. And I always laughed, and I said to Peter, listen, Peter, you're riding my tailcoats here, buddy. I don't know. I said, you never wrote him a letter, much less 2. I sent him a picture, 2 letters. I deserve the whole mill, Dave. So, okay. So, Peter, I'll see you later, but I'm going to take that. So we always kid around and we laugh and whatnot. But I think Ray was the laziest farmer in Lincoln because he sublet his farm, which is a lot of people do out there. And he watched a lot of television. And he watched Lucan, and he watched The Powers of Matthew Starr. He was way into aliens. He was into, like, when people ask you for your birthday, and they'll do your chart, whatever that fully means, but it's your astral chart. He and his mother they would do these astral charts. They did Peter, they did mine, even though this was later that someone did Peter's. But by my writing him back, and he wrote quite a few celebrities, from what I understand, and he was never married, no children, and he was an only child of the parents. But the celebrities he wrote to, no one ever wrote him back. Nobody ever,
including Peter. It sounds like,
and he did well. Peter included. I don't think Peter. He never got anything. But let's say he sent out 10, and I forgot the name, but I did find out a couple that he sent to. And again, not to be derogatory toward any actors, but probably, yeah, that's nice, okay, and then they just chuck it aside, or I'll try to get to it or not. But like the attorney said, by you doing that, it changed his life. And sure enough, when we went through his stuff, there's the 2 letters and there's the 2 pictures. I said, Peter, the guy saved these things for 30-something years. He didn't become a fan of Lucan until he was 36 years old. And I think he lived, it was like, I likened it to the Wizard of Oz, and his whole world was black and white. And he was always bullied. You know, he was Ray E. Folk, the farmer's son, a little autistic, always bullied, just kind of on the fringes of on the outside.
Was the house like Great Gardens? I mean, just was the house falling apart?
Well, house was okay. It needed, probably a few things, but he was a hermit and a hoarder. And so it took a few days to clear this place out, and all the stuff he saved. He's kind of like me. I'm a little bit, not so much a hermit, a little bit, but a hoarder. I have stuff from kindergarten. I have stuff I've saved. He put together plastic models of cars. I put together models of cars. Sometimes when I doodle, I draw pictures of cars. He did the same thing, super detailed, the grills, 1939, 40 cars. He was an amazing man. And there was so much similarities between himself and me.
If he was fans of both you and Peter, but he never mentioned Hell Night, the movie that you guys were in together. That's so funny.
No,
that's just a coincidence.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it was the alien aspect that got him, and Peter's show was on at that time, and so it was him and his daddy, and his mom passed away in '81, and basically he was turning the channels. I don't even think a remote, just by. And he came across Lucan, and his whole world went from black and white to color. I'm convinced of it. Mm-hmm. And he says to his dad, put that show back, put that on. And he found out about a lot of the writings that he wrote and whatnot are animals. He'd rather be friends with the dogs and the wolves and everything than people. People are dishonest. They lie. They lead you down other paths. They do. But animals are true and real. And he left behind, I would say, close to 2,000 or 3,000 pages of a diary. He wrote in his diary every single day, and he wrote in cursive penmanship. And I mean, boys, it was like he could have been a teacher. No mistakes, no scratch out, no lines on the paper, forward and front and back. This incredible, just to read it took you back 50, 60 years when he must have learned to write. He loved his dogs.
Yeah, did you?
His diary is completely in that cursive. And he loved his dogs more than anything on earth. And once his daddy died in 97, he made the will out to Peter and I, but he never slept in his bed upstairs again. He never changed his sheets. He had a couple of huge pillows in the kitchen. He'd sleep with Queenie and the other dogs. Any dog he had throughout his life, and he was born and raised on this farm, was buried in the backyard cemetery. There had to be 20 dogs back there with the crosses.
Gosh, that's a movie right there.
Yeah. Did you guys keep the farmland? Do you own a farm in Lincoln, Nebraska, or did you end up selling that?
Now that kind of became the thing. I said, look, Peter, this is the real thing. And Peter said, I don't know, Kevin. So after 3 weeks, he went out there and he met Bailey and he met the fire department guy and the chief of police and a couple of other people. He comes back and he says, look, if this is a scam, some kind of a fake, it's damn good, Kevin. It's damn good. I said, Peter, I told you, it's the real thing. We're going to have to go out there and meet these people. And so we did. Once the money and everything settled, we flew out to Lincoln, Peter and I went with Meg, and we had a memorial service for him. We bought him a headstone. His parents were buried. They had a headstone, but he didn't have a headstone. So we had a dog carved on the headstone.
Oh.
I brought a whole bunch of pictures and we gave them out to the ASPCA, and it was a charity event for that. Everybody in town came. It's like about 150 people. We all told stories about Ray. It was really just an incredible night. Aside from just leaving the money, just that this guy was touched enough and kind of beaten up enough through his life. He had 7 brothers and sisters, and they all should have been in line for the farm because they were relatives. But because he had no brother and sister for sure, whatever they had done to him, they treated him wrong. And he was a young man, 8 or 9 years old. And I think it tainted his whole life, followed him. And that's why I said he wanted to make sure that somebody related to me, even if it was the dog and the dog's both, was going to get this farm. And none of his relatives were, because I think they must have treated him wrong. So wow. I said to Peter, what do you want to do? He goes, look, I said, I don't want to be a farmer in the middle of Lincoln, Nebraska. Okay.
What?
I can't handle snow. It's not going to happen. Peter said, well, maybe I will. I said, you do what you want. And we both sold the farm. In those situations, neighboring farms will just scoop up. Yeah. So we had 180, 160 acres, something like that. So each farmer took 40 acres next to them, and they enlarged their farm. And it was a very, again, fortuitous time to sell. Ethanol was huge. So Ray grew corn, and they used the corn for the ethanol. And one other crop, I forgot what it was, and I shouldn't. But so the farm was sold. Everything was sold, all said and done. I have half of his stuff and the writings, and Peter has the other half. But to this day, even when we talk, I'll say, Peter, you never did write this.
It's just such an amazing story. And also, what a good tale for like how far a good deed can go. Do you know what I mean? Hello. Like, you hear these stories about a random millionaire tipping their waiter $100,000 because they were nice to them. Those. And you know what I mean? And it's almost like one of those stories, like your shows and the fact that you wrote him factored so much into this guy's life, and you didn't think about it at the time, but then suddenly 25 years later, you receive a letter in the mail and $500,000.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it was. And that's why I said to Amy, the minute I got the vibe off this envelope or something, it was just, and everybody, now they say, oh no, we believe you, Kevin. Everybody, my family included, except Amy, they all said, that's too good to be true. These things don't happen. It's too good. You'll find out. And don't get your eggs all in one basket. And I said, look, boys, there's something about this cat. I'm telling you. And so that's what it was. But, Matt, it's like you said, and it's you're never too big enough for your britches. You don't know what that letter's going to do. Even auditions, if it was for a 12-year-old librarian, I'd say to Amy, I'm going to drive into Hong, I'm going to park, I'm going to do this. I'm never going to get this role. She said, so you may not get this one. You might get 1, 2, or 3 down the line because you came in for this and you did a good job. They're going to remember you.
You never know what producer you might cut off and not flip off before an audition.
And I always wrote down who I met that day. And so then if I had a reading, say a year and a half later, I always went through my records. Oh, Melinda. So when I go in, I said, Melinda, it's nice to see you. Oh, we've met. Oh, yeah, it was about a year ago for the project, The Clowns in the Clown Closet. Oh, yeah, Kevin, boom. You've already got kind of a leg up. Because anything to get a leg up in an audition that is the odds are so stacked against actors and actresses. And it's just a blessing from God that something like this definitely happened.
We just have a couple wrap-up questions for you. But
okay.
Matt and I go to conventions all the time. And obviously The Exorcist, but there is a huge following for Hell Night. Would you ever do a horror convention?
I did a convention for like everything. It was about 10 years ago. And a guy called me, he got me the pictures, but he said, you just go to the convention, you sign your pictures, you take a picture with the person, the picture's $10, take a picture with them, it's $20, you make some money. I said, listen, my pictures are available somewhere online and they're going for 50 cents or 75 cents. And now you're telling me they're going to go for $20. But I went. It was a 2-day convention. It wasn't just, it was for all your work. I sat next to Tony Dow from Leave It to Beaver. I saw David Hasselhoff again after all. It was fun, but I don't think that I would do it again unless it was, run outside my door. And it just isn't as convenient. But
You know, a lot of stars go to horror conventions, and I think fans like us, it's just a fun chance to meet people that we've seen in the movies we love.
I'm actually really surprised there hasn't been a Hell Night reunion at a horror festival, because the festivals we go to, they're like, oh, this is the 25th anniversary of such and such, and they get all the people together, and there's like a panel, and they all talk about their experience. You
know, we were also wondering, what are you up to today? Are you still acting off and on, or?
You know, as again, my agent, I lost my agent, and I kind of lost the motivation. It's a lot, like I said, though, and now it's even more ridiculous, but I really don't computer. That's why Amy set me up with all this. And I'm sorry, I don't have a cell phone. Amy has the phone. I feel really just kind of
free. Probably feel free. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We're always with these. Always.
You're so right. But really, this world, you can't operate without the cell. You got this and that, and Amy does it all. So I'm kind of at a loss for that. But, you know, it's just, it became difficult. And now I live in the San Diego area. My mom left her house, left it for us. And so she went to Salt Lake City. She's with my brother. And she's 94. God bless her soul.
Wow.
So we're not really, we come back up to LA for medical things or whatever, go to UCLA. But I'm just not really as involved in the day-to-day. And, you know, you got to be motivated and you got to want it. And I would. If I lived up there, we had a convention. And I said, this convention was at a hotel near LAX. So it was great and I had a good time. And I probably would do it. It just seems a little bit harder now.
And would you do Hell Night 2 or any other horror films?
Yeah. Would you ever consider starring in another horror film?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I tell Amy, but they got to come pick me up, have the car and everything. It's got to be a little easier, but I can't do Hell Night because I think Bruce was talking about it because I'm dead.
Well, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis died 3 times. She keeps coming back.
About that.
Who knows? Maybe you survived that scythe through your entire midsection.
You can still live.
You know, and Jamie Lee, just a fantastic actress. I think I met her once, but she's great. She's dedicated.
Yeah.
That's what it takes to maintain everything like that. Oh, that was who I went to school. Did I tell you I went to school with Paul Rubens? He was in our class.
Yes, Ed Harris.
Ed Harris. I think it was Ed Harris, David Hasselhoff, and Paul Rubens.
But did you see Ed Harris dance in Creepshow?
No.
He has a hilarious.
Do yourself a favor today.
There's a 1982 horror film called Creepshow he was in, and he has this ridiculous dance.
It's hilarious. It doesn't go along with the rest of the film, but he does a little dance.
Oh, that's funny. You guys are so astute. I noticed you're very good at what you do. And,
thank you.
You love films. You love horror films. But like I said, I'm glad you included me. And I'm glad to have been a part of that genre. And making them making films, period, is a lot of fun.
We have one final question for you, Kevin, and we ask this to everyone we interview. It's going to kind of put you on the spot, but in a good way. What is one thing that you can tell us about your experience working on Hell Night that you've never told any other interviewer, publication, convention, podcast, or anything? Just
not even Amy.
Just one thing about your experience working on Hell Night that you've never told in an interview before. It can be a piece of gossip. It can be an Easter egg in the film. Just something you've never told.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be scandalous.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have an affair. And I didn't make it with Linda Blair. But what did happen is because we were youthful and we shared the trailer, and I think they learned their lesson to the production people, is don't really leave the cast alone too long because anything can happen. So they said, look, we got to shoot some stuff off camera, B camera stuff. So you guys have off for about an hour and a half. And it was about 2:30 in the morning. We're like, oh, God, you want to stay busy. And if you have to wait 10 or 15 minutes for something lighting, that's okay. But, now they're saying an hour and a half. So we're in there, and I don't know who it was. I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but it could have been Vinny. I think it could have been. Anyway, out comes a bottle of Hennessy. And we had a couple of beers. You could sneak some beers off the prop truck and go on the trail. No big deal. But now, a bottle of hard liquor appears. So we each tell stories, and we're kind of taking shots and telling stories and, kind of losing track of the time and whatever was going on. And we're all professional, but we're hammered. And it's 2:30 now it's, and production time, it's $800,000 a day or something. So you don't mess with producers and production time. It's very serious business. So they come to get us. It's 3:30, 20 to 4. I'll never forget it. They open the door to the Winnebago. I'm the first one they see. Kevin, you're needed on the set, and so are the rest of you. All right. And I took one step down the stair and just a face plant right on the dirt. And they said, okay, you're not going to be in front of the camera. Anybody else? Everybody, we're all just juiced, all 6 of us. So they said, okay, that's a wrap for the night. So we lost 2 hours, I would say, production time. And the next day was a little tense on set. And then the memo comes out, no alcohol on set, none of this, none of that. So we said, okay, we learned our lesson, but we were all young and dumb kind of, and so we blew a couple of hours of production time.
That's hilarious.
It's funny you'd ask that. It's not something I'm telling people all the time, but yeah, we all got together and we did that. And then, you open the door and you get in the cool air and all of a sudden you're like way more drunk than you should have been. So we apologized and that was that. But you learn to go through.
Yeah. No, it's been such a pleasure chatting with you, Kevin. Seriously, we really appreciate your time today. This has been so much fun for us. We're big fans. We really do appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Thank you again so much. We'll definitely be in touch about when the episode is going to come out, but we wish you and your family nothing but the best. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Matt, thank you very much. Tim, you too. I really enjoyed it. I didn't quite know what to expect, but you guys, you elicit good questions, and I really had a good time, and I hope I did all right for you too.
You did great. You were great. Seriously, great stories. We really had a lot of fun.
All right. Well, thanks for memory lane. I love that kind of stuff.
Perfect. Okay. Well, we will talk with you soon. Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Take care. God bless you. Thanks for everything. You guys were terrific.
Thank you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Happy Horror Time.
This podcast is hosted by Tim Murdoch and myself, Matt Emmert. It's produced by Jacob Randall.
You can listen to the podcast directly on our website, happyhorrortime.com, or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, or wherever you stream podcasts.
We release new episodes every Monday. The first Monday of the month is always an interview with a horror star, and every other week we review a new horror film. Now, our reviews do contain spoilers, but you can check out our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter/X social pages the Friday before release day to find out the movie we'll be discussing.
If you'd like to contact us, you can send an email to happyhorrortime@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to support the podcast, please sign up to be a patron at www.patreon.com/happyhorrortime. Patrons get access to our monthly bonus episodes, all our regular episodes ad-free and a day early, our monthly newsletter, the ability to vote in our polls, and, Tim, are you ready for this?
Autographed Happy Horror Time stickers. I'm Tim Murdoch.
And I'm Matt Emmert, and we hope you have a happy horror time.